This content was specifically created for YouTube and does not always reflect actual gameplay. Okay, so in this Cross Souls we're using unique weapons. Weapons that I believe are representative of the most unique mechanics in all of the Souls games. Something that sets them apart and tries to do something that none of the other games try to do. And that was pretty hard for, you know, Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1, because they're the first ones, so naturally the others are supposed to build off of these. And in Dark Souls 1, we don't have a very good, like, unique idea, but in Dark Souls 1 I decided to go with the Golem Axe, because it is an axe, and therefore it has the ability to whiff like this. If you don't hit anything, you have the whiff animation, which means you have more time to get hit. You have a longer recovery period. And that's not something they repeated in the other Souls games. So, other choices that I had for Dark Souls 1, apparently the Gargoyle Tail Axe was an option, because it had this sort of curving on its heavy attacks. Because, you know, it's like a physical, well, not physical, it's like it's a living weapon. It's like the tail of a gargoyle. So, it has that ability. Oh, another unique thing about Dark Souls 1 is the, if you don't have enough strength to wield a weapon, you try to swing it, then you do the not enough strength animation, and I found those very silly. It's not something you can beat people up with, though, I don't think. I'd have to, like, hit them with a buff. But we definitely aren't doing that. The Dark Hand is technically very unique, because it has the ability to steal humanity, which is, of course, not something they kept using. They used something similar to humanity in the other games, but the Dark Hand can steal humanity. Humanity doesn't exist in the other games to an extent. The Dark Hand exists in Dark Souls 3, but instead it just straight up steals health, because you can't steal someone's humanity. It would have been interesting if you could inflict the hollow effect on someone by using the Dark Hand, but that would have been beneficial to them to an extent, so I could see why they wouldn't do that. A particularly unique weapon in Dark Souls 1, though, would have to be the Lucerne. I had to choose between it and, I guess, the axes, or this idea, but I guess the Lucerne would have been a better idea, but I chose this one instead. It was more interesting to me that I could represent the whiffs of attacks. Because the Lucerne, it technically has whiffs and also a unique moveset, but the Lucerne itself is a repeating weapon, and the Golem Axe is not, which is another reason why I chose it, I guess. So, I intended to just say, like, a little bit, like, here's the things I was going to use, or I could have used, here's the reason why I chose this instead, and then maybe say a few more things about what makes it so unique, and then I'm just gonna leave you to watch the video. But at the moment, I feel like explaining a few things. Let me reiterate, the Golem Axe is unique because it's not a repeating weapon like the Claymore or the Zweihander, you know. It is a unique weapon, you make it from a boss soul. It has a projectile on its R2, and axes don't normally do that. In fact, I don't even think there are any other axes that have a projectile, like, built in. And the Golem Axe also represents the ability for weapons to whiff attacks. So the Lucerne, it's not a unique weapon, but it had a unique moveset, and I believe it can also do the whiff attack thing. But the Golem Axe is a unique weapon. It doesn't have a unique moveset, but it does have this unique projectile attack. And that's why I chose it. So I'm going to leave you just with the rest of this Dark Souls 1 clip. and then I'll come back when Dark Souls 2 is happening. So for Dark Souls 2, we're using the Santier's Spear. First, let me tell you about the other choices I had, because Dark Souls 2 tries a whole lot of different things. The other choices for unique weapons in Dark Souls 2 were the Majestic Greatsword, which is the Artorias sword. It is the only weapon in all the Souls games that is actually stronger, like specifically stronger in the left hand. Other than that, it's just a basic greatsword, but it also has the effect where it gets a unique power stance attack. It changes your power stance. There are other weapons that do this too, but it also has, you know, the Artorias stuff, the Artorias flip, Artorias spin. It's really mostly that it's good in your left hand, and nothing else does that. Then we have the Nil Greatsword, which is that curved greatsword in the Ice DLC. That one has the unique effect of getting stronger every time you beat the game. You have to actually beat the game in order to get stronger. You can't just use a bonfire aesthetic to go to your 7th level. Like, you can't cheat. You gotta beat the whole game 7 times. And it gets stronger every time. I'm not sure exactly how it works in other players' worlds, but because it can do that, and because it also has the ability to change the power stance of other stuff, and it's like a unique curved greatsword, it has a different moveset from all the other ones. And we have, you know, all of the... This is Dark Souls 2, the one where they first did the spellcasting weapons. So we have the Sorcerer's Twin Blade, which is a twin blade that can do that, which also has a unique power stance heavy attack. Sorry. We got the Sanctum Shield, which is a shield, which is a spellcasting tool. So you can, it's actually also a pretty good weapon because of that. Because it needs to have lightning and dark damage in order for the miracles it casts to do damage. And it can also be used to cast sorceries and stuff, because it can cast pretty much anything. It's just a really interesting thing. It's also actually a shield. Like, the disc chime counts as a chime. The Sanctum Shield is actually a shield. And we have the Shield Crossbow, which is a shield and a crossbow at the same time. That's honestly a very big choice because of how unique it is, but it's very weak, not very interesting. And, you know, the Puzzling Stone Sword, which is actually similar to the Threaded Cane if you think about it. And it's supposed to have, I think, Ivy's moveset from Soul Calibur. Very interesting weapon. You can actually parry it though, but instead I've chosen the Santier's Spear for a couple of reasons. So, first off, a lot of weapons in Dark Souls 2 like to use different movesets of various weapons, such as Yorg's Spear has Lance moveset, Halberd moveset. It even has the Handmaiden's Ladle. It has its running attack. A lot of weapons like to use different weapons movesets. So, the Santier's Spear is not special in that regard. It does, however, have the most combined movesets, I would say, because one-handed, it functions like a spear. You can even use it behind a shield, I'm pretty sure, but you can still do that with halberds. So. Even if it wasn't a spear, you would probably still be able to do it. Two-handed, it functions like a twin blade. I think it's entirely a twin blade, except for the running attack. Running attack is halberd. And its rolling attack, I believe that is also halberd, I'm not sure. When two-handed. When one-handed, the rolling attack is like twin blade, which is interesting. And its one-handed running attack is actually a scimitar, which is really weird. A curved sword, not a scimitar. And its heavy attack, when it's one-handed, is actually a halberd heavy attack, which is really weird. This is just a very strange weapon. But when it's not broken, I think its entire moveset is halberd. So it's interesting it only kept one halberd move. That one. But the reason why I chose Santier's Spear as the most unique weapon is because it's the only weapon in all the Souls games that actually changes when it's broken that I remember. Like nothing else in any of the Souls games does anything but break when it's out of durability. In fact, they even stopped using durability since Dark Souls 3, I guess. Because Sekiro and Elden Ring don't have durability. You smack the walls whenever you feel like it. But because the Santier's Spear does that, it completely changes. That was a really nice parry, by the way. Because it completely changes when you break the weapon. That makes it more unique than any of the other weapons in Dark Souls 2. It also used to be a very powerful weapon. It's still really good, as you can see. This is definitely one of the better options on the list. But it's not the best option that I'm going to be showing you today. But as you can see, I'm doing pretty well. I think that's all I had to say about Dark Souls 2. The Santir Spear is unique because it changes when it's broken. That's really it. So I'll see you in Dark Souls 3, and I'm going to tell you, it's not going to be a good time. Well, you'll see. So we're in Dark Souls 3, and for Dark Souls 3 I chose the Valor Heart. I really should talk about the weapon I've chosen first. The Valor Heart is a unique weapon because it is the only paired straight sword, like paired with a shield weapon. Like it's a weapon and also a shield at the same time. And you could argue that the shield crossbow is technically that, if you say it like that, but it's a paired weapon. Like, it's specifically meant to be used as both at the same time. It has a unique moveset, it has a unique jumping attack, which is also very rare. It has a unique stance, and it has block property on its first and probably a couple of the other swings. The coolest thing is definitely the jumping attack. Now, its stance is also really cool, but honestly, this weapon, I didn't really like it. But let me tell you about the other weapons first. The other choices that we had for Dark Souls 3. Paired weapons are also in Elden Ring, but this one highlights stances. Stances were a thing that don't really exist in Elden Ring that much. Frida's scythes, because they're a paired scythe, that one was a pretty good option. It also gives you a stance. The stance is not, you know, very interesting. Not to say that this is, you know, it's just 2 movesets. I would say the Aquamarine Dagger, which is also the next choice, was actually a better stance, if we were going to be talking about that, because that one actually lets you use it technically one-handed. You use it with one hand when you swing it, so it looks cooler, I would say, but the main part of the Aquamarine Dagger would be that I'm getting sidetracked. Hold on. So the Aquamarine Dagger, it would be the fact that it has running and rolling attacks. I don't think it has jumping attacks. I honestly never tried, but because its stance has running and rolling attacks, it's the more interesting of the stance weapons. So that was another choice. Another choice, oh yeah, the Aquamarine Dagger doesn't really do anything unique. Its stance, I believe, it's pretty much just a fair and flash sword, but on a weapon. It's pretty cool, though. Another one is the Crucifix of the Mad King. Was another Dark Souls 3 choice, because it has a weapon art, which is completely random. It chooses out of 3 options, but the fact remains, it is RNG, it is completely... You have no idea which one you're gonna get, you will not get the same one every time. And also, it can either harm you, give you poise, or cause a large area of effect. So, the one that harms you, though, it can also harm other people. It's actually, it's not all bad. It's pretty cool. Also, you can buff it, and it has Great Club R2s. It's a very strong weapon, but if I used that instead of this, I would have probably had a better time, but... These invasions in Dark Souls 3 using the Valor Heart, let me tell you how much it sucked. As you can see, I have the Millwood Greatbow on my back. That was just so that it... Well, I wanted to have a bow on my back. This character is a strength build. This is level 70. When I started asking people, I was like, why is this hard? I was like, why does this weapon suck? Like, I thought this would be a little bit easier. They're like, oh, you're at low level? I'm like, I'm level 70. Like, I get it. 120 is the meta. But I wouldn't say that... Like, look where we are. We're at Lothric Castle. This is a pretty late game area. I wouldn't say it's end game. I know the DLC is pretty cool. Also, this guy is just, like... roll catching me, I think. I don't remember. They were turning burning. It was hard to fight a lot of the players here. I actually cut out the longer fights. You'll be seeing those later. Sorry, but yeah, it just doesn't do a lot of damage. It's a really good weapon. I will say the Valor Heart's a really good weapon. The problem is, I didn't get a lot of damage with it. Like, you have a lot of tools available, but they don't do all that much. You can't buff it. You can't, I don't know, like, it requires a ton of stamina to do anything. Like, if you actually use the block property, it requires a ton of stamina to actually block anything. Its tracking isn't as good as just a basic straight sword. It would actually be better if I, like, one-handed it sometimes. It's pretty short, and the only thing I really have is the jump attack. Now, the jump attack is extremely good. The jump attack's definitely great. It's just, I didn't have enough damage. I really wish I could have included one of the... Oh, actually, this is the one I wanted to include. This is the fight I wanted to include. So, I'll just leave you with this, because I've said enough. I've talked a lot about this, but... We'll talk some more in Elden Ring. Okay? I'll come back when Elden Ring is going. So for Elden Ring, this is the latest Souls games. It was probably the easiest one to choose. It has a new weapon type. It's called the Heavy Thrusting Sword. Yeah, that made it really easy. Sorry. As you can see, this is a much better weapon than all of the other ones. I would say this is the best choice I had. If I, sorry, if I really wanted to, I could have used the, what was it called? The Dragon Cragblade. Was it like Dragon King's Cragblade? I think that was weird. Also, this host was really laggy. I had like a few matches like that when I was making this video. Sorry. I don't know what's up. But yeah, the hosts were just so laggy. Let me tell you about the cool things about the Heavy Thrusting Swords. So the Heavy Thrusting Swords are a new weapon type. There's no Heavy Thrusting Swords in any of the other games. Nothing even compares to them. Maybe Lances, but Lances are a weapon type in Elden Ring, so... Yeah. This character is level 132, by the way. This is meta level, essentially. So there's no excuse. This Heavy Thrusting Swords are just good. Specifically, this one is the most interesting in my opinion. The Dragon King's Cragblade is pretty cool, but it's pretty much just a hit people real hard weapon. Not to say that this doesn't hit people real hard, it's just this is an arcane weapon, so it's also a bleed weapon. And it has the Dynast's Finesse, which has like iframes. It's kind of like the poor man's Bloodhound step. It's not as good, but then it follows up with the big stab, and it was just the most interesting one in my opinion. Also, this build was already ready to use it. I technically could have very easily used the Dragon King's Cragblade on another character, but this one was so readily available. I was just like, why not? Why not? And let's go on the other choices. For Elden Ring, we had, I think I might have just been okay, yeah. Apparently the original plan was to use the Godskin Stitcher, so that I could show off that you can put whatever Ash of War on whatever weapon, which is not completely true. You can't just put whatever you want on. It depends on what weapon type you're using, but it was supposed to show that off. But what I would have done is probably put on a Stormblade in one of these, maybe different things every time. But Stormblade definitely would have been my first choice, so I don't think that would have been interesting to show off. I think showing a unique Act of War with Dynast's Finesse is a better choice. Colossal Weapons, which by the way, Colossal Weapon is technically a new weapon type, which is why it's mentioned here. They, in my opinion, they are just great axes and great hammers being weird. They are not really a unique weapon type. They're great axes and great hammers being weird for no reason. So Colossal Weapons didn't count for this because I was just like, that's not very interesting, and apparently I really didn't have any other choices. I was just dead set. I was like, yeah, Heavy Thrusting Swords, new weapon type, let's go. So, Heavy Thrusting Swords, they do pretty much everything that Thrusting Swords do, which is a whole bunch of stabs. And they also have the Feint, which is originally the kick from the other games. The Bloody Helise has the ability to do a whole lot of bleed build-up, which I believe is really weird, and I don't know why they did that. It's probably just because they wanted to emphasize the Moglin Dynasty stuff and how much power they actually had, which is interesting. Because they don't really have a very big role in the story, mostly because you kind of run up and stop them before anything happens. You know, they've been there for a while now. The problem is mostly that Niquella won't wake up, I guess. Still. Yeah, heavy thrusting swords were a pretty obvious choice for Elden Ring. We'll see you in the next one. Okay, we have Bloodborne. Bloodborne was a difficult choice. Every weapon in Bloodborne is very unique, except for maybe the Hunter's Saw and the Hunter's Spear, I believe. Those ones are, you know, pretty much the exact same weapon, with the spear just being straight up better in almost every way, I would say. But the choice I made was the Simon's Bowblade, I believe it's called. This is a very difficult fight, by the way. What makes the Simon's Bowblade unique compared to all the other weapons is just that it's the only weapon that's also a bow. Hey, what level is that guy? That doesn't matter now. Actually, we could find out. Tell me what level that guy was. So Simon's Bowblade is a weapon that's also a bow. Wait, do I not get blood echoes for killing phantoms? I didn't know that. Oh well. So purely because this is a weapon that's also a bow is why I chose it over the other one. Now, I asked people, I was like, which one should I choose? They were like, this is one of the options, and I was like, okay, makes sense to me. Because other than that, I guess, I do have other options on here that I thought about. Let me see. Bloodborne, the Cost Parasite allows you to change the weapon by equipping an item. This is technically something that I believe other weapons do. Such as the Vanquisher's Seal. Technically, in Dark Souls 2, the Vanquisher's Seal changes your fists into a stronger weapon. It's not exactly, like, you know, but the Cost Parasite and the Beast Claws can do that. Personally, I'm partial towards the Beast Cutter. It's basically a Ultra Great Whip, as people have been somewhat joking about. It's basically a whip that's very big, but it's also like a great hammer, like a club to an extent. I wouldn't say a great hammer, I would say a club, because you wield it one-handed. It's not crazy. The Cost Parasite's also pretty cool because it turns your bare hands into a weapon if you're not going to transform it, because you can just turn into a broccoli monster. It's pretty cool. Lugarius' Wheel is a very unique weapon, because, you know, it's just a straight-up wheel. We do, however, have stuff like the Beast Cutter. The Beast Cutter? No, not the Beast Cutter. The Whirligig Saw is what I meant to say. For some reason I said Beast Cutter. Maybe I was looking at it. So the Whirligig Saw gets repeated in, I messed up my parry. I didn't realize that. It gets repeated in Elden Ring. So I would have won right there. Cool. But I still win. Yeah. If I start talking about every weapon in Bloodborne, we're gonna be here for a while. Basically, I chose Simon's Bowblade, as I have been saying, because it's a bow and a sword at the same time. We have the shield crossbow, which is a shield and a crossbow at the same time, but this is essentially that same idea, but in a different way. And it's just, I haven't done that before, so in my opinion, that was pretty cool. It's not an amazing weapon, in my opinion. It, for some reason, feels much shorter than it should be. And, because you can't parry people by shooting them with an arrow, it, doesn't perform as well as I'd like it to. But the thing that throws me off is just that it feels shorter than it should be. Maybe if I had the Lost version, it could, like, have a circular gem, and then it could have, like, higher blood damage, and then I could use that, but I don't know. Maybe if I just had more power. Because I don't really... my Bloodborne builds aren't super optimized. It doesn't feel like this is a great weapon. Yeah, I'm gonna leave you until the Demon Souls clip. So for Demon Souls, I was going to use the Scraping Spear. I feel like the Scraping Spear is more unique, but I decided not to because I don't know if I could actually kill anyone with that, and I feel like most people would just be upset that I was doing that. Instead, I decided to use the Blind. The Blind is not exactly a unique weapon. There's technically 2 weapons in Demon Souls that do the exact same thing, with the Large Sword of Holy Moonlight being the other one. Both the Blind and the Large Sword of Holy Moonlight have the effect to completely bypass shields. And what that means is people cannot block it. If they're using a shield or a weapon to defend themselves, it will not work. It will completely ignore the shield or the sword or whatever they might be using to defend themselves, and it will just do full damage straight through that. The Blind is a heavily dexterity weapon. I believe it has 25 dexterity requirement, but what makes it really unique compared to other things is the fact that it actually essentially doesn't have weight. They kind of wanted to use this weapon again in later games with the Dark Drift, I guess. It really doesn't get across quite the same way. Dark Drift is definitely stronger, though. But the Blind is its own thing, really. It's just, it weighs 0.1 units. Like, there is no weight to it, essentially. So I like to have it just so that I can hit people through their shield. As you can see, this guy has a great shield. He's not going to use it, but it's very fun when they're just holding their shield up and I just keep hitting them. It's very nice. But, I had other ideas. Let me see. Yeah, the Scraping Spear is unique because it is the only weapon that can break people's equipment. They did not... I believed they didn't repeat this in the other Souls games. However, apparently, the King's Ultra Greatsword in Dark Souls 2 has the effect to deal increased durability damage. So, that's technically not true. The King's Ultra Greatsword also has the same effect as the Scraping Spear. The Scraping Spear is much better at it, but they are very similar. And they're definitely not going to do that again, because making equipment load matter is not something that FromSoft appears to want to do, because they got rid of it entirely with Elden Ring. But other than that, there's also the Lava Bow. It's actually the only weapon in all the Souls games that actually adds damage to just its own attacks. Like, if you shoot a bow with it. And it's technically not true because the, what is it called? The Serpent Bow in Elden Ring has the effect to add poison damage to any bow fired from it. So, those are technically very similar. We also have the Demon Brant, Soul Brant, and Northern Regalia. Those are technically unique weapons because in the same way the Dark Hand in Dark Souls 1 is a unique weapon, they rely on a Demon Souls specific mechanic, which is World Tendency. Actually, not World Tendency. Soul Brant, Demon Brant, and the Northern Regalia, they rely on Character Tendency. So depending on how pure, how close you are to pure white or pure black tendency, you're way more likely to be pure black tendency. Because if you're an invader, which I hope you are, you're gonna be killing a lot of people, or well, enough people to get into pure black tendency, and you're not gonna be able to go back from that. You'd have to kill other invaders to go to pure white tendency. That's just very unlikely. So. Yeah, Blind is just the Demon Soul's most unique weapon, even if there's another weapon that does the exact same thing in the same game. I'm going to leave you with that. Enjoy the rest of this clip. It's going to be the final one. Thank you for watching.